Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flat Black here at Seal Coat Nation. And in this one, we're going to send one out here to the DIYers out there who want to take on this responsibility of seal coating their driveway themselves, because it may be more daunting than you even imagine, but let's simplify it a little bit so that you know what you're getting into. There's no surprises necessarily, and you have everything you need before you start, knowledge-wise and equipment-wise and material-wise, so that when you begin it, you can actually finish it completely, knowing that you've done a great job and that you don't even have to call us. You can just do it yourself next time. Or you'll call us next time, because this isn't something you want to do every time it happens. Some homeowners are different. Some don't mind getting dirty, because I promise you, doing this job, you're going to get dirty. So let's get into it. What do you got to do as a homeowner to asphalt seal your driveway yourself in 2025? The first thing you're going to want to do is become a weather expert, okay? At least for the time you're trying to slot out to do your driveway. Because the most important thing about doing your driveway, above all else, is to make sure you have the weather you need to perform it. Now, in the south where it's warm, you don't really necessarily have to worry about this, where there's no frost. You're going to have to make sure that there's no frost during your application time, because it will disrupt the quality of your work. It'll make it look like crap. It will inhibit the product's ability to perform what it's supposed to perform, which is protecting your driveway from the elements. So if it doesn't have time to cure and get right before those elements start to attack it, it will fail. So you have to make sure that you have at least a good week or two's worth of nights that don't fall below 55 degrees. That's what's recommended. So if you notice that, your nights are kind of floating between 40s and 50s, just give it a little more time until you start seeing those temperatures pop up at night into the 50s, and they stay there. Now, being in the Midwest, you have different types of weather during different seasons, and they change. Spring isn't always the same spring next year. Sometimes in the Midwest, it's a little more mild, like it is this year. It stayed milder longer. Last year we had some 80s by now. This year we've maybe hit 80 once. So even springs and falls themselves can differ from season to season, so you just have to pay attention to the weather. You have to be your own special weather expert. So just be prepared for that. I want to just reiterate that a lot, because a lot of people don't pay attention to that, and it's very important. The next thing you're going to want to address is, do you want to power wash it? Because we do not power wash here. We don't need to power wash for us to have a complete job. We have enough cleaning tools to get the job done without having to actually get in there with water, but some homeowners do power wash before we come, and it doesn't hinder us in any way. It makes them feel better, and sometimes it does actually clean out some of the more porous asphalt a little better than what our brushes can get, because it is high powered and we're just using a brush. It does a good job, but it definitely won't do what a power washer does on some of these asphalt driveways. Now, if it's a nice smooth surface, power washing it isn't necessarily something you're going to want to do. You don't have to do it. And if you really have a high powered power washer, you could actually damage your driveway. So you got to be careful with that. But if you kind of have a porous driveway and you want to go with a light power wash just to get some of those heavy, dirty areas off, go right ahead. It'll save you a little bit of the scrubbing later. But remember, if you do use a power washer, you're going to have to add a day or two of drying and letting everything drain away before you can actually apply the seal coat, because you don't want extra water in your asphalt. It is water-based, but you don't want extra. You want the recommended amount of water, which comes in the bucket itself, and you want to apply that to a dry, clean surface. So if you have a driveway that's sitting high up on your property, it'll probably drain fine in 24 hours. You shouldn't have any issues. But if you have a low-lying asphalt driveway, typically those start to fall apart quicker. And if you notice yours is a little beat up and you're in a low area, just let it go. Let us use our tools to clean the dirt off. We'll do a good job. We'll use our blowers and brushes and all of that and our weed whips to do a really good job. There's no need to have it sit there, but if you insist, make sure you clean all the dirt off of it real good, lightly power wash it, and leave it sit for 2 days before we come. And then you're going to need another 2 days. So remember, you're going to have to add a day or two onto those couple days, and weather-wise, to make sure that you get a nice cure on your products. So remember, if you power wash, you're just going to have to find a stretch of weather that you know is good, that you can give it that extra day or two. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into what we actually have to do to prep this driveway. What are you going to need? As a homeowner, you're going to have to make sure that you have a few extra things with you, because you're going to get dirty doing this seal coat process, because seal coat is like paint. You're painting don't know if you've ever seen a painter, but they don't look clean. They got paint and stuff all over them. Even the best ones have stuff on their pants. They have to wipe it off, So just remember, get yourself a pair of shoes because you're going to ruin them. Something, that you can throw away. Maybe an old pair of sneakers, some socks, pants. Get a long sleeve shirt you can use because you're going to get it on your arms a little bit too possibly. So just make sure you're covered. Some people even like to tape off stuff, like their cement and stuff. If you're not a professional painter or you've never really painted before, go ahead and paint. Get you some painter's tape so you can tape off all your brickwork. You can tape off all your cement, anything that you're afraid of getting sealer on, just to make sure that you don't create yourself a mess that you can't clean up, because sealer is a little messy. So another thing you're going to want to have around is maybe a little spray bottle of water in case you get a little splash or something on something. You can clean it up real quick. It'll clean up with water, but you do got to get at it pretty quick, especially if it's nice and sunny out. So make sure you have the clothing you need that you can throw away. Make sure you have some water. And from there, you're going to have to make sure you have the ability to step off the driveway at the end. This is very important. So either have an old rug, maybe you just pop your shoes off and step out onto the road or whatever, and then throw the shoes in the trash. Just make sure you have a way at the end to exit the driveway, being as dirty as you are with sealer all over you, because you're going to have to tie this thing off, make sure nobody drives in your driveway and all that in the end, and you have to be clean to be able to walk around and do stuff. So just be prepared for that mess. You're going to have to find a way to basically undress in the end with all this stuff all over you. So what tools are you going to need to perform this task? Well, some of them are just basic yard tools. You have your weed trimmers. This is what you're going to use to make sure that all your cracks that have grass growing on them are all cleaned out. You can even turn this thing up on its side and dig those cracks out with the weed whip string to make sure you have a little bit of a valley to get your sealer in, or if you're going to use a crack sealant to apply the crack sealant. We can get into that later. So make sure that you're using your weed whip to clean up all the grass along those cracks and your edge. Your main goal is to try to find the edge of your asphalt, at least where it starts to go down an angle and slope into the grass. Some people have grass that's overgrown over top of their asphalt a little bit. At that point, you're just going to try to make a straight edge to make it look as good as possible. But if you do have the ability to find the edge of the grass, go ahead and find it. If you want to spend the time and take a shovel out and chunk back some of this grass that's been growing over there for years, do that. But just remember, your objective, if you can, is to try to find the edge of that asphalt. So use your weed whip or your shovel or whatever you need to do to find it. However, there's one thing I recommend you do not use that you use when you cut grass: an actual metal blade edger made for concrete. If you start using this on your asphalt, you'll find asphalt chunks come flying out of the edge because it's not made for asphalt. Asphalt is too brittle for this machine. Do not use a metal blade edger. Stick with the weed whip. It does just as good a job. You just got to play with it a little bit. Maybe find a spot you can goof around, or maybe just get out the shovel and then trim it up with the weed whip at the end. Either way, that's going to be your first part of your process, is to get this thing grass free and get your edges pushed back, looking nice, so that you can get to the next step, which is using a brush to clean up all the dirt. Now, we recommend a metal brush, which is what we use, but you can use different types of brushes. It just takes a lot more work to get the job done, especially if you have a really nasty, dirty driveway, which if it's really bad, just call a company to come in. It's a lot of work to get it done to the point to where you can actually put sealer on it. Once it reaches a certain threshold of just dirt and debris over it, it becomes a more than one-man job. I mean, even some driveways, I look at them like, man, I wouldn't want to do this myself. And I'm a professional, pretty healthy, pretty fit, and I can get the job done pretty good and quick. And some driveways, I'm like I wouldn't want to do this one by myself. So some of them you're just going to have to call somebody, at least the first time, to get it first started. But if you think you can manage, just get yourself a little brush out, get your blower, and clean everything off. It's very important that you clean the cracks out deep enough to get some sealer in it, or get a filler in, and get your edges cleaned out enough to where there's no more dirt, no sticks, no debris, so that you can actually get your sealer down over that edge and not like pull up a bunch of stuff with it. Whether you're using a brush or a squeegee, doesn't matter. You're still gonna find problems if you don't blow this driveway off well enough. And remember, you can just blow the dirt up into your grass. Just get rid of it, get it off the driveway. So once we've gotten to the point where we feel our driveway is dry, clean, debris-free, no grass, no dirt, no nothing, you're ready for the next step, which is either applying the sealer or pre-filling your cracks with something. Here at Options, we use hot rubber crack filler. It comes out roughly between 325 and 375. We try to keep around 350 for this product, which is a hot rubber crack filler. But you can buy things from the store. I don't know what to recommend, to be honest, because this is all I've ever used is the hot crack filler. I've never had to use asphalt crack sealant, but they do sell stuff. The one thing I can say is the closer you get to having to spread it with a spread knife, the better. It seems to sit in the cracks better. If you buy like a silicone that's not paintable, you're going to have a problem with the sealer looking weird over it. It won't want to stick to it. So just remember, when you're doing your crack sealant, if you're trying to fill your cracks pre-sealer, use something that you can use a knife to spread so that it gets it down in the crack. Take your time, do a good job. And then when you're ready for sealer, you're going to have to figure out exactly how much you need. So now that you've got your cracks filled in with your filler of choice, and you've got it all cleaned up, leveled off as good as you can, your next job is to find out how much sealer you need. Now when you go to Home Depot and you buy the sealer, it recommends a certain square footage. You can go ahead and follow that, and remember, the smoother it looks, the less you'll need. The rougher it looks, the more you'll need, because you'll be filling more void. So just remember to judge the texture of your driveway before you buy some. Maybe go with the highest recommendations, and if you have to, you can take a bucket or two back, because you don't want to run short. It's just a pain in the ass to go, man, I'm just like a bucket short. It's just one of the worst feelings. Plus, you want to finish so you can tie it off and make sure that it's completely sealed off and ready to go. But before we get into all that, let's find out what we're going to do here, because you can apply this thing in a couple different ways. If you're a do-it-yourselfer at home, you're probably not going to be spraying this on. So this is going to be for those who are obviously going to be using the squeegee or the brush. I recommend the brush. The bristles tend to get into the asphalt a little better. However, if you have a really smooth driveway, you can get away with a squeegee. Just remember, the squeegee doesn't really dig into the asphalt. So if it's like an undulated driveway that's kind of got some up and downs, like hilly a little bit, maybe it's sinking in a couple spots, that squeegee is going to leave extra in those low areas. Whereas the brush will probably nicely pull those heavy areas back because it has room to actually squeeze down in there. So I would recommend a brush over a squeegee, but that's just me. You can get away with both. So once you've decided exactly what tool you're going to use to spread it, just remember, this is like painting. So you're going to want to get a small brush or a small squeegee to do your edges, just so that you make sure that they're done well, and you don't necessarily have to pay attention to them as you're doing the rest of your job. Now, if you want to know exactly the kind of patterns you use to seal coat, go ahead and watch our videos or others. They'll teach you kind of how to walk it, how to move it, how to get rid of your footprints, because you're going to have this stuff all over the place. And once you cut in with these smaller brushes I'm telling you about now, you're just going to have to worry about spreading it and getting rid of your footprints. And the number one thing, make sure you have a shovel, because if you pour out too much seal coat, you're going to have a way to get rid of it. And if you have too much at the end that you can't get rid of, it's a big problem. You have to start walking it back up the driveway, pushing it out, trying to find ways to get rid of it. So have a shovel that you can use to put it back in the bucket, and a way to keep the shovel or keep the area clean of the shovel, because it's going to be full of sealer now. I reiterate again, maybe have something laying out, an old towel or two, maybe an old blanket you can set some dirty stuff on to keep it off the grass and the sidewalk and brick and all that other stuff at the end of your work, like off of the driveway. You want to keep it off the driveway so you can set the stuff off and finish your driveway. So you're going to want to pour this stuff out, but you're going to want to be careful that you don't splash it everywhere. So just gently pour some out. Try not to step in it too much and splash around, and you're going to slowly spread this stuff around. Now, our videos, if you watch them, they'll show you how we dump them out. Now, we're obviously professionals. We know exactly what we're doing, how much to dump out. You can see we just kind of go about it nonchalantly, like we do it every day, almost, because we do. But this is going to be new to you, so just remember, start slow. Figure out how much your tool is going to spread, how much it's spreading per how much of the bucket you're using. Keep an eye on all that, because it's very important, how much you're using, how much you're going to need. And learning that as you go is going to help you, because if you don't pay attention to it and you get to the end and you either got too much or too little, you're going to be very upset with yourself for just not watching that. And remember, as you're spreading this stuff, you're going to want to leave an even coat. You're not going to want to leave a bunch of lines everywhere. What I mean by lines is, as you're pushing this stuff, you're going to realize some of it's going to want to squish out one side or the other. Whatever side it squishes out, make sure it's the side you're moving towards. Don't leave big lines where you're moving away from, or they'll just sit there and you'll see lines all over your driveway. So just remember, try to keep this coat even. And it has a little bit of a working time. If it's not directly in the sunlight and it's 90 degrees, it'll have a little bit of a working time. And remember, the more sunny it is, the warmer it is, the less time you're going to have to work with this. I find upper 60s, low 70s is like the perfect temperature for working with this stuff. So if you can find a early summer, late spring day, or a late summer, early fall day before all the leaves start falling, those are like the perfect times to seal coat if you're doing this yourself. Professionals can do it any time of year as long as the weather's right, regardless of temperature, like the heat, because they work fast enough to get it done. Now once you've got this driveway completely sealed and you're down to the end, you're going to want to step off somehow. And you're going to want to do a finish stroke to get rid of your last couple steps. So either you can pop your shoes off and set them to the side onto like this blanket or towel or whatever you have out there. We have carpet. We carry carpet. We find old carpet. We cut it up and just use little pieces of carpet. So if you have like an old welcome mat or something laying around you can get rid of, that's probably perfect. But just remember, at the end, you're going to have to take your footprints off that last little stroke, and then you're going to have to tie it off. So you're going to want to have a couple stakes, maybe some big sticks you can stick in the ground, and some flagging tape or something that people can see to where they don't drive onto the driveway. And if you have a concrete walkway that goes through your asphalt drive, then you're going to want to cut off both sides of that concrete. Put a stringer across both sides so that people don't walk onto either side of that asphalt as they're walking by each other. Let's say a couple people are walking by and someone says, oh, I'm going to hop over here to get out of their way. Make sure they don't hop over onto your asphalt. So put that stringer up at the road and both sides of the concrete walkway if you have them. If not, just make sure the road's nice and cut off so that the delivery guys don't pop in there, or somebody pays a surprise visit you don't know and boom, they're all over your brand new seal coated driveway. There's one thing I didn't mention. Now, if you have cracks that are really, really big and really, really deep, and you think you can fit some cold patch down in there, then by all means buy yourself a little bag of cold patch and find a way to jam that down in them cracks real good and hard before you put your crack sealant that you bought, the spreadable that I recommended, and put that in. So make sure you get that cold patch down in there and leave yourself a good quarter to a half inch to put the spreadable on top of the crack so that it's nice and filled in all the way down to the bottom, and the chances of it spreading wide open again are a lot less, or it'll take a lot longer, at least at that point. So remember, backfill those deep cracks as much as you can. You can buy sand and use sand to do it too, or dirt or something like that, but if you can fit cold patch down in there, I recommend you use that because it's a sticky, heavy aggregate filler that will harden for you, and it has a binder in it that's actually water resistant. It keeps water out, so that's what I would recommend. So the one thing I couldn't really describe in this video is the technique to seal coat, which it's basically the same as somebody who's troweling cement or doing what they can to create a pattern that doesn't leave anything behind, no stroke marks. So if you want to watch pattern, go ahead and watch our videos. We have a lot of seal coat videos where we're all kind of seal coating. One guy's in the back just removing footprints. It's a small horseshoe pattern. It's a very slight one. It only horseshoes on the end, kind of like a kind of like a handlebar mustache, how it's real straight, and then at the ends it curls down the sides. That's kind of how you seal coat. You take it across, and then you slowly at the ends bring it back down so that you have room to come back into your line. Because remember, as you're moving down the driveway, you can walk all over the part you're moving into, and you can swipe down in there and leave any kind of marks you want. It's that last final swoop that takes care of the footprints that you have to make sure is stroke perfect. And by stroke perfect, I mean you get all the footprints, you don't leave a big line behind, and on the edges you're not leaving excess material off to the side as you're pushing. So remember, if this video is helpful for you, and you've learned a little bit from it, maybe it's helped you guide you towards what you need to do to get your driveway done as a do-it-yourselfer, please leave a like and a subscribe. And remember, if there's anything you need to look at and see on how to do things, because I know a lot of learning things is watching others do it, then just kind of watch our videos. We have a lot of videos on here that show seal coating, spraying, brushing, cutting in, cleaning. We have a lot of videos, so there's a lot to watch, a lot to consume in order to get this job done yourself. So with this video and others, you should be able to handle this no problem by yourself and have no need to call us. But again, I gotta say, if it's that bad, just give us a call. Sometimes you'll need a little asphalt patching, which we do as well. So I'll do another video on asphalt patching here coming up soon. But until then, please enjoy the videos and like and subscribe if you do like these videos, and we'll see you out on the flat black.